A dish best served cold by Jahin Zaman. It was a cool mid-autumn day in the countryside of France. The sun was partially hidden by the clean, white, overcast clouds, allowing a warming mix of the sun's heating rays and a gentle northern breeze. I was leaning against a strong oak tree at the top of the hill overlooking my father's farm. We were a simple family. It was just myself, my two older brothers, and our father. Our mother had died a couple years ago from an illness that doctors couldn't seem to explain, which ended up pushing our father into a silent stage in his life. I remembered parts of her hidden away in the deepest parts of my head. Going into those memories caused the warm, salty tears to slide down my cheeks. It was so peaceful outside that I dozed off. I woke up to the amazing voice of Elise shouting, Arno, come on, dinner's ready. If you don't come soon, Eric and Ryan will eat all of it. All right, I'm coming, I shouted back. I took in the scenery before I got up. The sky was a deep blue, with little sparks of light scattered across it, giving it a heartwarming glow. During dinner, my two older brothers, Eric and Ryan, were arguing about some meaningless topic. I didn't give it much thought. Elise and I were talking about the harvest we collected this past year, arriving on the truth of how poor it really was. Just then, father burst into the dining room. A look of terror washed over his sleep-deprived eyes. He began shouting, his voice sharp as knives. Pack your things, all of you. We must leave at the crack of dawn. Why must we leave, father? Asked Ryan, with worry etched into his deep blue eyes. Because of how poor the harvest was this past year, we weren't able to afford the taxes. That pig, Prince Louis XIV, though he's just a young prince, demands that we pay these absurdly high taxes. He's come to collect them in the morning. If he does not get them, he will place us on the executioner's block. We must hurry, our father explained with a crack in his voice right at the end. I rose to pack my things when Elise grabbed my arm, tears streaming down her face, and whispered so quietly it was nearly inaudible. I'm scared, Arno. I wiped the tears from her eyes and replied in a soft, reassuring tone. Everything's going to be okay. I promise I won't let anything bad happen to you. I had trouble believing in the words I had said, but I would try my best to stay true to that promise. I have never been so wrong in my life. Because of what father had told us earlier that evening, it was no wonder I had trouble falling asleep. Instead of lying in my bed all night waiting for dawn, I decided to go outside to the oak tree and gather some nuts and berries from around its roots to eat in the morning. I was midway through picking up some more berries when I heard horse hooves at a brisk gallop. I knew they weren't our horses, so I hid myself in the tall grass surrounding the tree, my slim body and dark clothes looking like a mere shadow in the field, witnessing the events about to take place. On the horse in the lead, an icy white stallion, rode the prince, with 12 or so men behind him. He stopped short of the two houses, still on his horse, while his men hopped off their horses and went into the barn and Elise's house. Two soldiers, one holding each arm, dragged Elise, her mother, my brother, and father out of the two homes and lined them up in the middle of the dirt road, a soldier 6 paces behind each of them. At first I didn't understand what was going on, until the guards lifted their rifles and I wasn't sure where I was running to. I don't even remember standing up from my hiding place. The last thing I remember are gunshots, 6 bodies swimming in a pool of blood, and Elise's cold, dead eyes looking right at me. I woke up with a start in a stiff bed, covered in sweat. For a split second I thought I had imagined those terrifying images, at least until I noticed the cuts and bruises along my arms and legs, and the strange symbols scattered along the walls. Subconsciously, without expecting a response, I asked, Am I in a guild? In a way, yes you are, replied a deep voice from the shadow of the room. How did I get here? I asked, praying my voice didn't sound as weak as I felt. I found you passed out on the side of the road, covered in cuts. What's your name, boy? Why were you found on the side of the road? The man asked with barely any traces of emotion behind his words. My name is Arno Victor Dorian. Prince Louis XIV killed the ones most dear to me in cold blood. I want my revenge, I replied with tears streaming down my face and dripping onto my tightly closed fists. Well, you've come to the right guild, Arno, the man replied, stepping out of the shadows. Well, Shadow Guild. Welcome to the Guild of Assassins, where nothing is true and everything is permitted. That was the moment where I realized two things. Firstly, that I had taken my first dark step into avenging my loved ones. Also, that I had failed to keep my promise to Elise. It didn't matter how he paid for this, as long as Louis was dead, and I was the reason behind his death. Nothing was going to get in my way to revenge. I thought things would be easy, that it would be smooth sailing from there. I thought that after a year of training I'd have the ability to eliminate him. Not quite. The mysterious man who had rescued me and brought me to this guild turned out to be the Grand Master of Skills and Arts. He took me under his wing as his prodigy. He acted almost like a father to me. He taught me how to read, how to write. He also taught me how to use different writing skills to impersonate different alibis. He also focused on a skill I had a natural instinct for. I was able to manipulate my voice to sound nearly identical to anyone of my choosing. He also taught me how to use my surroundings to virtually disappear, as to avoid any sort of trouble I could get myself into. At first he was ridiculed for bringing in such a young child as his prodigy. Those morons stopped laughing once this child was requested to join the elite classes at the age of 12. The elite classes were only for the best. They had one rule amongst them: be the best or die trying. Within these classes, after my 8th year at the guild, I started asking some of the other members why they joined the guild in the first place. I wanted to learn their motives. Turned out 3 of the younger members shared the same motive as myself. We all had a bone to pick with Louis. 4 of us became friends pretty quick. Edward Bastian, or Ed as we called him, was the oldest and strongest of the 4 of us. As it was, a year before Louis attacked my family, he had done the same with Ed's family, with Ed being the only survivor. Remy and Carr was the next oldest, being a year senior to me. When Remy had first come to the guild 6 years ago, his back was covered in whip marks and his face was beaten to the point where only one of his eyes would work. To this day, Remy wears an eye patch to hide his dead eye from strangers. His story was that Louis demanded suitors, and when he came to take Remy's sister, Remy and his father stepped in the way, not prepared to let her go without a fight. This resulted in Remy getting beaten and whipped, his father getting shot on the spot, and his sister being taken away, screaming and crying due to the events she had witnessed. The last and smartest of us was Leon Chevalier. Leon had told us of how Louis had burned down his entire village, and Louis's men slaughtered any survivors they found. What was the reasoning? They claimed that the village committed treason by not sharing its resources with the royals. Thing is, Leon's village was among the poorest in France and was barely surviving through the night on their limited resources. The 4 of us shared a motive, a reason to get revenge. We had the perfect team. Things had become a whole lot easier. We worked hard day and night as a 4-man squad, tackling missions meant for 8 men, and doing them with ease. Alone we were the 4 strongest, smartest, fastest, most driven assassins in the guild. Together we were as strong as an entire army. As each day passed, our plan took shape, with a massive battle looming over the horizon, soon to be known as the French Revolution. We knew that Louis would be too busy with the battle, so it would be the easiest time to strike at that point. A few years passed, and it looked as if Louis's days were numbered. That was until Alphonse, a new recruit with promising intelligence-gathering ability, came rushing into the main hall, out of breath, red, bloodshot eyes. "Any new intel, Al?" asked Leon, with a hint of excitement in his big brown eyes. "The king," Al replied. "He passed away last night, and of all his sons, that pig Louis is going to take over the old man's seat as leader of their country." "That complicates things," Ed pointed out. "We knew things were never going to be easy. We go through with the plan. It is going to work. All it needs is a little bit of revising. Do not lose faith, my brothers. It is almost time to strike. The new king will not be king for long," explained Leon, with a calm, sharp voice. "You're as philosophical as ever, Leon. Do not let that big brain of yours go to waste," replied Remy in a humorous tone, lightening the dark mood of the room. The 4 of us laughed together for a short while before returning to the task of reforming the plan. This revising took us 4 years to complete. I trained under the assassins for 15 years. I had made a powerful group of friends who had become sort of a family to me. My brothers in arms and I plotted and schemed plans, backups, failsafes. We looked at every possible variable in perspective and modified our plan to cover them. We spent 7 years planning and put our names out there. We were the youngest ever 4-man squad for years. We never failed. We were the smartest, strongest, bravest, most cunning and driven assassins in the guild. 89 consecutive assignments completed in 3 years. We were nearly invincible, and we were ready to take our revenge. "Can we go over the plan again?" asked Remy, as doubtful as ever. "Fine, Remy," I replied. "Here's how things are going to play out. First, you and Leon distract the guards. Once you've taken them out, Ed and I will enter the palace and take out the guards on the main floor. We'll take advantage of the king's new law against the insane, stating that anyone showing signs of insanity will be put on the block. Once we infiltrate the walls, we will then—" "What? Why did you stop?" began Leon. Before Ed clamped his large, rough hand over Leon's mouth, I moved my hand in a motion only we understood. A motion that meant danger. Only 5 seconds later, an entire military fleet passed the place we were hiding in. The plan had nearly failed before it had even begun. We had no time to waste. Thanks to the revolution, the king's fortress was as vulnerable as it ever could get. We were hidden out in the Imperial Garden, where we had been for several hours, until it was midnight, so the guards would be too tired to fight back. We gave ourselves 10 seconds before embarking. We made sure that our equipment was in check. I had my hidden blade, rope darts, dart shooter, and 8 throwing knives ready. With a knife in each hand, I counted 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The plan went exactly as I imagined it would. The 2 guards stationed at the front door were so tired that a single blow to the head was enough to knock them out. We had agreed that murder would only be committed if it was absolutely necessary. Ed and I saw the signal and rushed inside, using our highly trained, fine-tuned senses to create a visual diagram of the main floor. On the far left, there was a staircase where the only guard on duty on this entire floor lay unconscious. We flew up the stairs silently to see that Remy and Leon had incapacitated all the other guards and hid them in an unused room. We made one final promise to each other to be careful, and then the three of them went off to their individual hiding spots, and I approached the king's room. I stepped through the already open door and proceeded through the shadows, mapping out the room. Once I got to the farthest corner of the room from the door, I used one of the first skills the master had taught me, vocal manipulation. I imitated the voice of the recently deceased queen, the wife of Louis, and started to scream, not so loud as to alert the guards, but loud enough to wake the king. I wailed in the queen's voice, "Please, Louis, help me!" I led him up the door with that voice, the king shaking like a baby. That's when Ed took over. He was in a suit of armor from one of the many armor stands and began to slowly walk towards the king with outstretched arms, as if he was attempting to grab the king. The king broke off in a sweat out of fear, allowing Ed and I to put back the armor while Remy took over. The king ran right into the room where Remy was lying on the floor with a knife handle protruding from his chest. Just as the king was about to scream, the 8 knives I brought with me shot out from multiple directions, each of them missing the king by a fraction of an inch. The king completely lost it at that point. He was screaming for the guards to come help him, allowing 3 of us to escape and allowed Leon to hide in a place to observe what happened next. He told it that because of the king's constant blubbering and adamant arguing, he had fallen into the category of the insane. He was executed a few weeks later. We weren't done there. The 4 of us led the French Revolution to victory, so we were the ones who took the liberty of becoming the kings of the New World. I miss my real family every day, especially Elise, but if those events had never happened, I would never have gotten into such a position of power. However, I would give up all of this power if it meant I'd be able to see them again one day. From that day on, France became a safer and much more peaceful land, all thanks to some kids who wanted to avenge the ones they loved.